And there's one other concept I'd like to tell you about. It's called smooth shading. Now, a lot of the time when we draw polygons in OpenGL, we want them to represent 3D figures, or smooth figures, like a sphere, for instance. And if we were to just draw a bunch of polygons for a sphere, then it would look like this figure on the left. It looks kind of ugly because of all this lighting. You can see the individual faces. But if we use smooth shading, we can actually make this sphere look like this, and it's hardly any extra processing time. And it looks a lot more like a sphere over here, but it's actually the same set of polygons, which you'll notice it has a jagged outline because it's actually, the polygons aren't very many. And how does this work? Well, what we do is, at each of the vertices, instead of the normal to the face, we use the normal of the actual sphere that we're trying to approximate. And then anywhere on this face, say somewhere in the middle, it'll just average those normals together to find a different normal that it'll use for shading that particular point. So that's how we get this to look nice and smooth. And it's much better than adding lots of extra polygons because it takes hardly any extra time to render this compared to this, actually, which is pretty cool. So now let's see this in action. Let's say our box is supposed to approximate a circle, which is kind of stupid. I mean, a square isn't a very good approximation of a circle, unless you're drunk or something, but whatever, we'll just see what we can do. So what I'm going to do is I actually have everything set up with these commented outlines. So I'm going to uncomment them out and comment out the calls to GL normal 3F that we already had. So once I comment these all out, you'll see that there's a call to GL normal 3F before every call to GL vertex 3F. And what that does is it makes it so that we specify the normal for each vertex, not just for each face. And we specify it right before calling GL vertex 3F. So these normals are the real normals that we would expect on the circle that it's approximating. And one other thing we have to do is we have to go back up to the init rendering function and uncomment this out so that we have the shading smooth by changing the shade model to GL smooth. Before we had it on, or we may have had it on GL flat before, which is just flat shading, not smooth shading. So if we wanted to change it back, we could call GL shade model GL flat. So at any rate, that does it for our smooth shading. And let's take a look at what that actually does, how our program looks. So here we go. It has a nice smooth gradient across the face from red to white, or rather from reddish yellow to yellow, because of the different colors shining on the different edges of this face. And that's the idea behind smooth shading, and that's the basics of how we do lighting in OpenGL.